Do you want to surf faster? Do you want your board to feel loose with maximum drive through every turn? Do you even have the right fins in your board? Introducing my signature 5-fin set. Designed for maximum speed and drive with a large fin base to power you through turns. Plus medium fin depth keeps your board loose and responsive, reducing drag for unstoppable speed and glide. Proven performance after years of testing in the best boards from the biggest brands. Unlock your full potential with my signature 5-fin set. Get your fins now at surfandshow.com. Hey guys, welcome to Surf and Show. I'm Noel. Today's surfboard review, the Dominator Pro by Firewire Surfboards. Now this is a stock 5'6". It's coming in at 25.9 liters and I'm 5'9" and 165 pounds. Now if you stick around to the end, I'm gonna answer all your questions. We're gonna compare the Dominator Pro to the FRK, to the S-Boss, and the Dominator 2. This will be fun. Sit back, get your favorite drink, enjoy the show. Now I want to talk about the board attributes. The Dominator Pro is very similar in a lot of ways to the Dominator 2. Now from my understanding, it has a bit more overall rocker. And when I feel like you're going to need that out of a high performance shortboard. When you put this board in a wave that's got some curve, you always want to match the curve of the board to the wave. And I also feel like this has a little bit more rail line at 5'6" compared to my stock Dominator 2 at 5'4". Now, the other thing is they pulled in the nose a little bit and they pulled in the tail, giving it a little bit more pronounced tip compared to the Dominator 2. And the other thing I want to mention is there is a bit more single concave under the front foot, then it goes to double to V out the tail. And I want to mention this too. The rail in my hand, I would say, is a bit more refined. It's going to be a little bit sharper compared to the Dominator 2. I felt like that rail was a little bit more full with a different shape overall because my Dominator 2, I think, was 2 1/4, and this one's 2 5/16. So when you pull in the nose, you pull in the tail, and you sharpen the rails, and you give it a little bit more rocker, that's what's going to separate the type of turns you can do on the Dominator Pro compared to the Dominator 2. This is going to be a tighter arcing turn. It's going to offer a little bit more sensitivity, not only on the rail, but it's going to get into that lip quite a bit quicker too. Now I want to talk about the different fin setups I ran in this board. I found it to be very versatile, and I remember the Dominator 2 being my favorite as a quad, so that's where I started on the Dominator Pro. And I remember the very first wave was a right. It was pretty glassy, and what I'm looking for out of this quad setup is just the speed. I love to have the 2 fins on one rail so I can push, and I feel like it has that resistance and gives me the drive, but what I wanted most was the flow. So it had the speed coming off the bottom. I got 3 turns on this right, maybe 4 turns, and I'm like, oh, that's the feeling that I'm looking for. The flow, the speed, and the resistance. And the more I rode it, the more I fell in love with the Dominator Pro purely as a quad. Now, I feel this more backside than I do frontside when I ride a quad, and it's probably at the peak of a turn in the transition surfing backside. I feel like I transfer my weight forward, and it gives me that little bit of release. Remember, it doesn't have the center fin, so it can slide a little bit, and I feel like that's what makes the quad so fun for me. It keeps it exciting, and it did have that Dominator 2 feel to it. Then I pulled out the quad set and I went to my Pivot Twin Plus trailer in the pre-preg carbon. And what I really liked about this at the pool was it just loosened up the board just a little bit more. It still had plenty of drive from the side fins because it does have a wider base. It's pretty upright, so it was getting a lip real quick. But just a little stabilizer really seems to suit the wave pool wave where I can get in there and at the peak of that turn, front side and backside, just get that tail to get loose with a lot less effort on my part. Now I did try the Dominator Pro, and I remember not liking the Dominator 2 as much as a thruster as I did quad. So I pulled out my quad fins, put this center fin in, and it felt great. And I really feel like most surfers will like the Dominator Pro as a thruster in the ocean if you're riding it as your pure performance, high performance shortboard. A lot of you guys are going to like the thruster. It had the flow, it had good timing from turn to turn, and with that center fin, it really gives you a little something to pivot off of and make the board a lot more predictable. So one of the things that I know you guys are going to ask me is, how did I like it compared to the Dominator 2? So for me, the Dominator 2, I surfed it in Kelly's Wave Pool, Waco, and I surfed it in great waves at some of the point breaks in Southern California. And I remember a couple of the waves at the point breaks when it got well overhead, I was riding a 5.4 Dominator 2, and as a quad, it had that silky speed and flow, and it was just so effortless. Now at 5.4, it was a bit shorter, so less rail line, and I felt like on some of the days when it was overhead, I could see the board having that chatter on the bottom turn. They didn't make the Dominator 2 in a stock 5.5. And I feel like that would have been ideal for me in that particular model. But the more I rode that board, the more I liked it. And I really felt like with the Dominator 2 having less overall rocker, a little bit wider tail and wider nose, it had a little bit more quick get up and go speed with less effort on my part. Now, fast forward, Dominator Pro, you put it in the same waves in Southern California, where I have a lot more wave face, and this being 5.6, adding 2 inches more in rail line is going to give me more stability. It's going to calm the board down on rail, especially at high speeds, so I'm not going to get that chatter I was getting on the 5.4, right? And one of the things that I feel like our community has to remember is that when the waves get bigger or they have more punch, the stability and the length of more rail line is going to work in your advantage. So those are a couple things to consider. Now, because the Dominator Pro has more overall rocker than the Dominator 2, it's going to take more effort out of the surfer to put it on rail and push off those rails to really get the most beneficial performance out of the Dominator Pro compared to the Dominator 2. What I loved about Dominator 2 is twin plus trailer or quad, ride it in smaller surf, 5.4, it fits into those little pockets faster. I feel like it goes down the line quicker. Now it does have that little bit of a hip here. Both boards have the hip. And I feel like that breaks the water off and gives me something to pivot off of. But if I'm looking for more of that step down from a high performance shortboard, I'm going to go Dominator 2. I want that quick get up and go speed with less effort. It just glides faster. Now, if I want like a legitimate high performance shortboard for like 3 to 6 foot surf, I would say the Dominator Pro is going to suit our community better. Now, is the Dominator 2 easier to surf compared to the Dominator Pro? I would say it's similar. When the waves get bigger, you're going to want more rail line. And for most of you guys, I think the Dominator Pro is going to be 1 inch longer than the Dominator 2. And that 1 inch length will make all the difference when the waves get bigger.
Ian here from Woolly TV. Great to be back on Surf and Show with Noel. This time around we've got the Firewire Dominator Pro. This one's a 6.0, 33.3 litres. I like that fin combo. I felt it gave me just a little bit more drive and a bit more hold. So that was my favourite so far. I love being on rail. I found I like the stiffer fins in it. It was okay as a quad, but if I wanted to go as a quad, I'd go bigger fins than what I had. So the fin combos were all good. It's so different to the original, well, the Dominator 2.0. The rails are much, much nicer. They're finer, the tail's finer, and it surfs so much differently to the 2.0 Dom. It's a little longer and straighter. I think this one's an inch longer than what the old one was for me. Felt so sick when you push through a turn, and it really hugged into the pocket and fitted the pocket really, really well. Forehand and backhand, so I really enjoyed that. No problems generating speed, went really, really fast, carried speed well, carried speed through turns. It's kind of just like a really nice daily driver and almost a performance board, but I'm probably at this stage going to drop it into the daily driver area.
Hey guys, I'm 5'8", 175 pounds. This is the Dominator Pro. This is the 5'8 version, that's 28.1 liters. Typically I ride the 5'7 Dominator 2, which is 29.4 liters, so I should probably be riding the 5'9 Dominator Pro, but the 5'9 felt a little bit big for me. The 5'8 feels right on the money. So this board almost rides a little bit bigger than you think it does, so just keep that in mind when you're looking for one of these. So for testing this board in North Florida, I got actually some pretty decent waves, waist high plus. Some days were a little more mushy, but this board just goes really good through the flat sections. I think it's mostly the helium technology, but it feels good on carves, feels really good on rail, and I feel like when I lay on the rail and come back into the pocket, or even just do a layback or a carve, this board squirts out of those turns with speed and allows me to get up into the lip quickly. The fins I liked most for this board were the Velox fins, the thruster set, and to me that just felt the best for this board. It gave me really good control on my carves, but also allowed me some release through the top because the rear fin's a little bit smaller than the side fins.
Now I know you guys are going to ask me to compare the Dominator Pro to other boards in the Firewire lineup. So I want to talk about Dominator Pro compared to the FRK Swallow or any of the other FRK models that Dan Man came out with. I feel like the FRK is going to have a more refined rail. It's going to be a little bit more tapered. It's going to be narrower in the nose and in the tail. Might even have a tad more overall rocker or be real close. But when you start pulling in the nose and the tail, the turns are going to be sharper. And with a more refined or tapered rail, it's going to do more razor sharp turns. Now, I also like that the FRK is in the ibolic construction because I personally feel like that construction's a little bit heavier compared to the helium tech. So when the waves are bigger, or if it's got a little bit more curve to it, obviously you're going to want to put a board that has more rocker in it. And because the FRK has a tighter or more pulled in nose and tail, it's going to do a tighter arcing turn. When I talk about turns being razor sharp, you're going to be able to settle that rail down a lot faster compared to the Dominator Pro. And because the ibolic construction has a little bit more weight to it, you're going to get less chatter at high speeds. You're going to be able to sink the FRK rail faster than you're going to be able to put the Dominator Pro because of the helium tech being a little bit lighter. It's going to feel like it's a little bit more on top of the water, and it could be a little bit harder to settle that rail down compared to the FRK purely because of the construction. Now I want to talk about Dominator Pro versus S-Boss. And a lot of you guys ask me this all the time to compare boards that have a wider nose outline to something like the Dominator Pro. And for me, it's apples and oranges. Anytime we get a board with its wide point in front of center and there's a lot more width and surface area up here, it's going to be a better paddler. However, because its wide point's a little bit more forward from center, that's going to promote carving. Now, if you're the kind of surfer that doesn't get to surf all the time, you're not really looking for a high performance shortboard, you're not looking to do tight arcing turns, you're not surfing vertical, I feel like the S-Boss is a very forgiving board that's going to allow you to do that. You might do a lot more carves, cutbacks, roundhouses, and that board's fast and it projects good and it has a lot of drive because it has a round tail. I feel like the Dominator Pro is doing a tighter arcing turn, and that's what I like to do. I like to come off the bottom and do a really sharp wrap. That feels really good to me. And I like to surf more top to bottom, trying to surf the pocket as vertical as possible. And I feel like this sort of outline suits my style of surfing better. Now, I will say that because the Dominator Pro has a squash tail, and I would say it's more of a rounded squash, I feel like squash tails, they pivot and get vertical faster compared to a round tail and compared to a swallowtail. I feel like they have more release too. So at the peak of a turn, not only am I getting more vertical quicker, when I come out of that turn, I feel like a rounded squash or squash tail is going to have a little bit more release and slide. And I also feel like a squash tail carries more speed than a round tail or even a swallowtail because the tail block's a little bit wider. Anytime we get a wider tail block, it's going to create more lift. And when we surf the board off the fins, it's really going to feel a lot faster and go where you want quicker. When I look at the footage between the Dominator Pro, the FRK Swallow, and the S-Boss, all at Waco Surf, I feel like the Dominator Pro is the best of both worlds. If the FRK is ultra high performance, this board makes the FRK look a little bit slow at Waco, in my opinion, because of the overall outline. It's probably a little bit wider, especially in the tail. When I ride this board as a quad, it looks a lot faster to me than the FRK. And then when you look at the footage on the S-Boss, I feel like the S-Boss, I can really see the width in the nose kind of dictating the turns a little bit to me, feeling like there's a little bit too much foam in front for my style of surfing. I feel like this board is dead smack in the middle of FRK Swallow and the S-Boss when it comes to high performance surfing. Now, will this board suit most of our community as a high performance shortboard in, let's say, 3 to 6 foot surf? It'll absolutely do it for you, and it will do it for me. I would prefer the Dominator Pro over the FRK Swallow and the S-Boss purely for my style of surfing, and I feel like the Dominator Pro, I don't have to work as hard to get the speed I want to do the turns and maneuvers I like. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is my preference on the Dominator Pro. I feel like I liked it best as a quad and twin plus trailer, which is very similar to the Dominator 2. I feel like that had the most flow. They both carried the most speed and really suits my style of surfing, and both boards are really easy to rip on. And I feel like our community, if you're looking at getting the Dominator Pro and you have a Dominator 2, is there some wave overlap? Because you're always going to ask me that. And I would say yes, but they ride different. I feel like if you're going to have your Dominator 2, that's going to be your step down from your new high performance shortboard, which would be the Dominator Pro. And the Dominator 2 is going to be quicker in transition in a smaller pocket because it's shorter. I feel like it's carrying more speed with less effort because it has a little bit more width, a little thicker rail, a little wider tail and nose. And that extra width and less overall rocker is going to give you more glide and speed with less effort. Now, if you're going to step up into a high performance shortboard and the waves are a little bit more punchy, even if it's like chest or shoulder high, all the way to maybe a little overhead, the Dominator Pro is going to make for a great high performance shortboard for our community. Now, the last thing I want to mention is the Helium Tech. For me, personally, I like it about maybe head high, a little overhead, but beyond that, if the waves are really bumpy and choppy, it probably wouldn't be my first choice. I would probably look to go something in the Ibolic or a PU Poly in general. Now, special shout out thanks for the folks at Firewire for sending this board in for review, and all the surfers that helped me put the Dominator Pro through the paces. Look, if you like the show, subscribe, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and give us a thumbs up if you like our content. Until next time, we'll see you in the water. Bye-bye.